Hey everybody, we are trying to reconnect. We're gonna see what's going on here, hoping that we are still connected on Facebook. Let's see if we are.
Okay, let me see.
Might have to reload and see if we're still connected on that. Nope. Okay. So let me do this really quick so we can hop back onto Facebook. Ah, the wonders of modern technology, you guys. Let me do this.
Have some of that CNN money, wouldn't have to go through that, right?
Right. Yeah. But sadly, we've just got working stiff money.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we have. Let me write it again. All right. Online there, online there. Come on, YouTube. All right. Part two. Part two. All right, you guys. All right, there we are again. And we are back.
Are we back?
We are back. Woo! Oh man. See that's what happens, like you said, when we don't have that CNN money.
That's right.
You know, we didn't leave a cushy job at a network where we were making six figures and we're able to use our little CNN money or our MSNBC money or wherever to start up our own little network. This is just two working stiffs with our own PCs.
And
our
used
own
PCs.
yeah, how about that? Used PCs and our own little home equipment doing this thing. So bear with us, y'all. We apologize for the interruption. It got the blue screen of death. Unfortunately, that just makes me want to buy a Mac. I hate that because I don't want to give Apple our money. I really don't. But man, we gotta have reliable equipment to do this. And anyway,
we'll get there.
We will get there. So everything's looking good. Everything looks like all systems are go. Gonna give you guys a few more minutes, just a couple or more minutes. Hey Jamie, hey George. Thank you all for hopping back on. To continue to hop back on, and please do share this video. And when we're done, we'll stitch the two together.
Yeah.
And so you can have it all in one place.
We have to go to our magic elves that we have.
Magic elves.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I have to open this document again. There's just so much stuff that we just could not, just got interrupted with doing.
So we left off, those of you who were with us, we left off really highlighting what many of us who voted for Obama back in 2008, a lot of the aspirations and the hope that we had in his presidency.
Right.
I remember you was talking about how you voted for him once, and I remember voting for him twice. The first time I voted for him, just because it was I said, wow. I said, here is a man of color running for office. Now it wasn't just about, and I think that was one of the things that a lot of the criticism that were that were given to black folks in particular. Oh, you just guys are just going out voting for him because he's black. And that was that didn't make any sense, because I mean, back when Kennedy was running, Kennedy, you going to tell me all the Irish Catholics wasn't going to vote for Kennedy?
Right.
I mean, Richard Nixon's a Quaker. I mean, I don't know if Quakers vote or not, but if they could, I'm sure they would vote for a Quaker.
I didn't know he was a Quaker.
He's a Quaker, so he was a Quaker. But what I'm saying is that why wouldn't it be any different for us to see someone, most of us thinking that we wouldn't even live to see a person of color even be seriously considered, for the presidency. But anyway, so yeah, I voted for him based on that, but I also voted for him because you're right, Jackie. He came with this, I saw the passion, even though I wasn't completely sold, and that was just my own cynicism. But I wasn't completely sold. But I said, well, this guy got a lot of charisma. He's talking the right things, and I'm saying, well, maybe. Hey, look, who we had that year? I think he went up against George Bush, I believe.
Right, the first time.
Yeah,
and
the first time.
Second time.
And, of course, I was done with Bush, and I was done with the Republicans.
Right.
And it just wasn't any viable third candidate at the time. But anyway, Obama was talking the right things. And I even forgave him, or not forgave him, I understood when he had to distance himself from Reverend Wright. And he had to play the racial game, and I understood. I was like, well, he can't be all in just yet. He got to get in office, and I think Farrakhan did an interview where Farrakhan said that he told Obama that I understand why you have to distance yourself from me, because it's the way that America is. Okay, fast forward, he gets in there, and he gets in office. From what I remember, having the House and the Senate Democratic majority, because Bush just screwed things up.
Right.
I mean, we had the Iraq War. I think we was, the invasion of Iraq War and all the lying about weapons of mass destruction.
Right.
And folks were just fed up. And then, not to mention, here comes the recession. So folks all around were just fed up.
Right.
And we could have had, and I think there were bumper stickers and T-shirts that said anybody but Bush. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So people were just fed up, and I was fed up.
Yeah.
But so Obama gets in there, and he it was like, okay, all of the rhetoric that was around Obama, he was going to heal the oceans, and he was going to and he was going to do this, he was going to do that, and I was a little kind of turned off by the whole Roman cathedral look that he had in one of his rallies.
Oh yeah, the inauguration.
No, I think this was before the inauguration.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he had some, I forget where it was, but it was something where it was like a sort of like a Roman, temple or something. And he caught a lot of flack for that. I kind of was turned off by it too, but I said, okay, fine, he's a young guy, a little bravado, So he comes in office. And he has the Democratic majority in Congress. Right. So I'm saying, man, we're ready to go.
Right.
Oh man, let's start. Let's start unbushing America. Let's start unbushing America, man. You got the Democrats there. We ain't got to. And I was more, and I think a lot of folks were, especially black people. I'm gonna tell you, Jackie, the first time I knew his presidency was a problem for a lot of white folks out there.
When?
On CNN when he won, I'm talking about the first time.
Okay.
CNN when he won, black folks was out there, they was laughing and they was partying and stuff. And I forget who the commentator was or the reporter who was reporting this election night thing for CNN. She said something that really pissed me off. She saw all the happy black people out there, and she said, I guess it was too much for her. So she says, all right, black people. She said that you could go back on election night and see it right there that she said that. I was watching it, and she said, okay, black people, okay. Okay, that's enough.
Wow.
And I remember looking at this, and I was like, wow. I said, here it is. White folks didn't have presidents since the beginning.
Right.
All the way up until 2008. And we get one. and we can't even,
can't even party
right,
about it.
So, and then, but to move this forward, he got 98, 99% of the black vote. Which isn't surprising for his first term. Sure. 98, 90% of the black vote.
Sure.
And once again, when he got in there, I immediately started getting disappointed with him. I got disappointed with him because I felt that he blew his political capital that he had coming in with that majority that he had.
Right.
And I understand some of our audience members are still talking about bad buffering. We don't know, guys. We're gonna just try to get through this as we can. We're sorry for any inconveniences it's causing. But so anyway, so I felt that it was too much. I got tired of hearing so much of this. I'm going to reach on the other side of the aisle.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to reach on the other side of the aisle.
Yes.
I'm going to use the force of my moral character, and I'm going to change these old-ass racists into responsible lawmakers, and they're going to see that it's a more morally right thing to do to work with me, and I'm going to ride high, and, And then he gets in there, and the first thing that happened to any president in history was that, or at least in modern history, televised history, was that when he gave his first State of the Union address, and that dude out in the audience said that he was a liar.
Joe Wilson stood up during the State of the Union address in Congress and screamed at the President of the United States. You lie.
Right.
Never happened before, at least you're right, in televised history, because there was a point in time in the early years of this country in governance where candidates would get into fist fights on the campaign trail. They would duel, right? So it's not like we descended into this uncivilized. No, we've never really been civilized in this country. Let's be honest about that. But I mean, so it's true, and we're starting this discussion out making very, very clear. That's why we're doing this, because I know y'all are like, I thought y'all were going to tell the truth about Obama. No, we're getting there, but we wanted
this road definitely leads to Rome.
Oh, yeah, but we wanted to make it clear that we understand that President Obama faced a political environment that was toxic, vitriolic, hateful, and damn near violent because of racism.
But we was with him. See, and that's the thing, because we knew as black people that we knew that those landmines was out there.
Right,
so black people, we was like, okay, we put on our coats and our helmets, and we like, Obama, we're gonna rock with you because we know they're gonna come at you, and you're gonna have to take some hits, and this is new for them, it's new for us, and but we rocking with you.
But just do right by us, Obama. Just do right by us, though. We're gonna rock with you as long as you do right by us. And that's the problem. He didn't do right by us. He didn't do right by us. And the foreclosure crisis is one of the starkest examples of how and why he didn't. Now, I can't even, we don't have time to explain to you why the housing bubble happened, how it happened. One movie we watched on Netflix that we really loved, that we thought would be way too complex for us to understand, but it really wasn't, and it was frightening, and it was sobering, and it was infuriating, but it explains the mortgage crisis pretty well. It was called The Big Short. That was an amazing movie. This policy paper that was just issued by the People's Policy Project. This is the basis, some of the graphs and charts that we're going to show you tonight. Reading through this policy paper was the reason we did this show, because we knew it was bad. Right, because we live not too far from Prince George's County, Maryland. Prince George's County, Maryland is the wealthiest black community in the country.
For now.
Or it used to be. Before the housing crisis.
Right.
And it didn't make sense that all these black people with good jobs and good incomes and good credit were just as caught up in the housing crisis and in the foreclosure crisis as all of these people who allegedly didn't read their mortgage contracts, like Hillary Clinton famously said. Well, it's partially the borrower's responsibility because they didn't read the fine print, alluding that these people were stupid and irresponsible. That these were not people who could not afford to pay back the mortgages, but it's a mortgage loan. Nobody takes a mortgage loan with the idea that you afford. You don't take a loan out on a house with the intention of, oh, I have $80,000 at the time you might have bought your house. Nobody says like, well, yeah, I'm going to take out a $250,000 mortgage on a house because I have $250,000 in the bank to pay it off, just in case some. This is not your credit card, because your house is supposed to be an asset. Right? It's supposed to appreciate in value. So the idea is it was never supposed to be that you had to have the amount of money in your bank account that was equal to the amount of your mortgage loan. That was never the case. If that was the case, then the New Deal would never have issued all those mortgage loans to returning GIs, because they didn't make enough money. See, do you see where? Okay.
I mean, you know, it was so shady at that time that my ex and I, we were going to buy a funeral home. And I told you the story.
Oh yeah.
And we were going to go. You know, we were getting into the funeral business, and we were going to buy a funeral home. And at that time, I had just started my little trucking business. You know. So, I mean, I'm just getting that off the ground. And then, and my ex at the time was just, getting, you know, her foot in, because she was a mortician, or is a mortician. And so, at the time, it was like, the people that she worked for, they was like, well, they wanted out of the funeral business. And they had this very beautiful building that, you know, that she worked in. And they was like, well, we'll sell it to you for $1 million. So I said, look, you know, we can't afford $1 million.
Right.
Now I'm just going to show you how it was. So what happened was they had this dude there who was known to hook people up.
The hookup.
He was the dude that was known to hook people up. So they brought him in, and we all sitting around the table and everything. And he said, Abdul Shahid, he said, I can get you this building. I said, this guy wants $1 million for this building. I said, I don't have that kind of, you know. He said, oh no, leave the numbers up to me. Now, look, I've made a lot of bad decisions in my lifetime, but just something told me that, you know, because I'm not the brightest guy in the world, but I looked at the type of business that was coming in as opposed to what the expenses would be. I mean, that's typical business 101. So I'm saying, well, you know, I asked my ex, I said, well, how many funerals did this place do, you know, in a year's time?
Right.
They did about maybe 15, 16 funerals. And so the amount of money from those funerals combined wouldn't even have covered half the mortgage had this would have been financed the way that they wanted. Wow. That's why they wanted to get out of it.
Exactly.
Because they were losing money. So I said to my ex, I said, no, I don't think this is a good investment. I said, I'm not going to go through with it. Well, what I'm saying is that my example is an example that happened to thousands of people.
Right. And I mean, we're talking about people who went into mortgage negotiations or mortgage contracts understanding one thing, or literally being told one thing, and then finding out a few months later that their terms were not the same.
Right.
That they were their terms changed over a very short period of time. And the finance companies, not even the banks themselves, because this is something that I found out through reading this paper. The finance companies themselves would sell the mortgage to a loan servicer.
Right.
So like if you originated your loan, you went to a Bank of America office, and I'm intentionally using Bank of America because they were one of the worst offenders of mortgage fraud and discrimination against Black and Latino people in this mortgage fraud scheme. So if you went to a Bank of America branch and signed your mortgage papers, Bank of America didn't keep most of those loans.
Right.
They immediately sold those mortgages to a mortgage servicer.
Mm-hmm.
So then you think you've got a mortgage with Bank of America, and this actually happened to me. I had one loan with one company, and then like 6 months later, out of nowhere, they send me a letter. They don't ask you.
Right.
I mean, here's the thing. It's like you're living in a house that you think you're paying one organization for the mortgage for, and then the organization that you're paying your money to doesn't even tell you.
Right.
They don't tell you. They don't ask you. And if they do tell you, they send you something in the mail that, is 18 pages with a lot of fine print. And the next thing you know, you're paying somebody else. But you're not realizing that you owe another person, another entity, your mortgage. And not only do you owe another entity your mortgage, but they've changed the terms.
Yeah, they did, yeah.
And your loan originator, Bank of America, never told you that they were going to sell your loan, or that the originator that they were going to sell your loan to had a right to change the terms, and they were always going to do that.
And so we bring this up to say that for black folks, and because there's a method why we brought this up, and we were saying that black people suffered the most underneath these type of what they call it, unscrupulous, predatory practices that cost black people the largest theft of home ownership in American history.
Yep.
Also caused the biggest loss of black wealth in American history. So we brought this up to show you how severe that was, or that that was at that time. The fact that here we are 10 years later, and this is after Obama put forward the bailouts for the auto industry, the banking institutions, and all of the financial sectors got bailed out. And so what happened is the fact that there was nothing to bail out, as they used to say, Main Street, but there was nothing to bail out Main Street. And there definitely was nothing to bail out Black Street.
No,
you know what I mean? Nothing. And so what happened is that black people lost, because in America, as you know, Jackie, most of Americans' wealth is within their homes.
Exactly.
So now black folks, and I'm glad you brought up PG County, because they were a perfect example of how devastating this is. Now, the first black president, to put it on your article that you can ready to share with us, the first black president could have done a lot. And this is the narrative that we're fighting against, people, in this live stream, is that those who what we call hero worship Obama, the first thing they always say is, well, there wasn't much he could do because he had all this opposition. He had this, but you know what? There was a lot he could have done.
Yeah, there was a lot he could have done. There was a lot that at least one person in the administration tried to make the administration do, but the administration with people like Timothy Geithner, you remember him, that Obama appointed to head the Treasury. They didn't listen to this guy. We'll get to this. So this is why large financial institutions preyed upon, or this is how they preyed upon black people in particular, black people and Latinos. I hope this can show up for you, because I'm not able to see on my screen. Let's see if you can get it. Uh-oh. All right, good. You can see it. So this is from the report, from the policy report called Foreclosed, How Obama Destroyed Black Wealth. And of course, we're going to provide you a link to this report when we're done with this stream. So this is the part that pertains specifically to black people. Everything else gives you a breakdown of how the housing bubble, how the housing bust happened, what the financial institutions did, how they carried out their fraud, the kinds of crappy things they did. But when it comes to black people in particular, this is what the report said, and I highlighted this. African Americans have always been far behind white Americans when it comes to housing wealth. Most notoriously, they were largely locked out of the New Deal federal housing subsidies that were the bedrock of the post-war middle class through redlining, maps that laid out black neighborhoods
we covered that.
as undesirable. We have talked about that so many times on this show. And we'll talk about it again because it's worth repeating. This was carried out through racist housing covenants backed up by the threat of right. You want to talk about black people being violent?
Right.
You let a black person try to move into a white neighborhood. White people lost their minds, literally. Yeah. Just attacked black people, trying to get the American dream, right? Racist housing covenants backed up by the threat of riots forbade neighborhoods from selling or renting to black families. All right, this was during redlining, during the New Deal, when the American suburbs were created, when middle class America was developed and grew.
Right.
Everybody who was able to benefit from the New Deal GI Bill housing programs were able to enter into the middle class. Everybody but black people. And that was intentional. All right, so that needs to be established. Now let's get to this paragraph. Much of these abuses were forbidden during the civil rights era on paper, all right? But their forms persisted. What does that mean? The Civil Rights Act under the what was the name of the legislation? The Fairness in Housing, the Fair Housing Act, specifically forbade redlining and the kinds of racist discrimination in housing that black people faced because of the New Deal era. But just because it was a law, do you seriously think people stopped doing it?
You can't legislate people's hearts.
So these practices persisted. The mortgage bubble produced strong demand for subprime mortgages, which once again especially victimized black families. Here is where it gets really disgusting. Mortgage originators handed out such loans to disproportionately black lower class people who could not possibly pay them back, but they also steered middle class black families who would have qualified for ordinary mortgages into subprime loans as well. This is where communities like Prince George's County, Maryland, the wealthiest black county in the country, come in. Now, I know people are like, well, you know, these black people had a lot of money. When you consider the income gap between black people and white people, or the wealth gap between black people and white people in this country, PG County was the wealthiest county in America for black people, but they always lagged behind wealth and income for comparable white communities. Let's make that clear. Right. All right.
They had a lot of money when it came to comparing them to other black people.
Right. So when we talk about the impact of this housing policy, the recent recession in regard to foreclosures, and we look at communities like PG County and Maryland and the suburbs of Atlanta, you know, which are just, we know how black the suburbs of Atlanta are. Atlanta's the black Mecca. We look at those and say, well, those are wealthy black people. Those are wealthy people. They're wealthy by black America standards, right? They're wealthy because they have more money than us. They're not wealthy like white people are.
And then we got to understand that when they talk about wealth, their wealth is basically derived from work.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it's not wealth that has been passed down. It's not wealth that the government helped generate. It's none of that. It's wealth that, because I mean, at that time, a lot of the newly black middle class, many of them came through colleges and education, and they got that kind of money because their profession and practices that they had was based in the black community. There weren't black dentists in the white community.
Right.
It wasn't black doctors getting paid off of white people.
Right.
So a lot of that wealth was built because of segregation.
Exactly.
Because black people needed professionals, just like white folks had professionals, and that's how a lot of these people made their money.
Right.
You know, and so We got that down,
Mm-hmm.
and we understood that this is the trend that was going on. So now, when it comes up to the Obama era, and we find out that black people are losing their houses and they're losing and that now we're on a recovery track. Okay, all this is done. Everybody got hit, but now we're on a recovery track. You know. And now we're seeing white people recover to a certain extent. We're seeing Latinos recover, but yet it's still this. But for black people, the recovery is not so great.
Exactly.
And so why is that?
So the other thing I think, excuse the multiple screens there. The other thing I think it's important to note. Is that when people talk about, especially when you see it reported on the news, oh, America has recovered from the recession. No, white America recovered from the recession. Black America didn't really, black homeowners in particular, didn't recover from the recession until 2016. And that's not even taken into account all of the people who actually lost their homes.
Now, you said something to me, because I mean, I'm pushing this for the sake of time, but you said something to me last night about this program that Obama was supposed to had started that was supposed to help people that were victims of these subprime loans and stuff. And but it wind up doing what?
Not a whole heck of a lot, for a lot of reasons. But so we remember when financial institutions like Wells Fargo and, like we said, Bank of America were caught. They were finally caught with more for mortgage fraud.
Right.
And institutions were like Wells Fargo specifically admitted in sworn testimony that they deliberately tricked middle-class black family. Now, these were people who had the income and the credit scores to
that if they were white, this would have never happened to them.
And we say that, and people never believe us. But right here, a Center for Responsible Lending study found that from 2004 to 2008, 6.2% of white borrowers with a credit score of 660 and up got subprime mortgages, while 19.3% of such Latino borrowers, they also had a credit score of 660 and up, and 21.4% of black borrowers with a credit score of 660 or higher were intentionally steered to subprime mortgage.
Now, see, this what kills me, when you always hear these folks that when they always talk about black people and the reason why it's so hard for us to get ahead in this country. Oh, well, if you only did this, and if you only did that. And that's proof right there that even when all things are equal with credit scores and education and all those things, that somehow just following the roadmap that they lay ahead. And we need to be clear here, and a lot of our audience understand this, is that a lot of this is racist, of course, but a lot of this is because capitalism cannot function without having someone to exploit, and we have been deemed to always be the fodder for that machine.
Exactly. Now that's a whole nother discussion for a whole nother. That's like another series of discussions. Why if you are really talking about revolution in this country, any model based on capitalism is not going to get us there. Not black people. Everybody else, maybe, but not us. Because we are the oppressed class. We are the designated oppressed class. Black people, Native Americans, black people, and Latinos. And even Latinos, and I don't mean to make it like, but as you can see from the data, as I'm about to show you from the data, even Latinos recovered faster than black people did, and that was intentional, because this was done intentionally. So the HAMP program, let's get to that, because yes, it's true, the stimulus was intentionally directed to address part of the mortgage, the foreclosure crisis, and there were funds that were allocated to suppose stem the tide of foreclosures and provide some type of assistance to homeowners who were who were threatened by foreclosures, who were about to foreclose, loan modification programs to help them. Here's the problem with that though. And I'm skimming kind of quickly, obviously for the sake of time, but because this is the 30-page report and we cannot go through the whole 30 pages here with you, but it's horrifying. So let's start real simple, and I'll try to go through this kind of evenly, so you can get the picture of what was really done here. This is the breakdown in home ownership by race. We talked about white people having a couple of generations of head start for home ownership than black people and Latinos, right? So white people at a 70% home ownership rate, black people at 43, 42%. Latinos started out in 1990 at a 40%. Okay, that's great. Now, by 2010, the recession starts to be mitigated by the stimulus.
Right. Stimulus and bailouts and all. Right.
But here around, 2007, 2008, maybe 2009, the percent of homeowners with negative equity starts to go up, because this is when the housing crisis starts.
Right.
This is when we start to see there's something wrong.
And I'm looking at that green line, and that green line seems to be rising pretty high.
Figure 3 shows what percentage of homeowners were in possession of a negative equity dwelling. This was, what's a negative equity dwelling? You buy a house, and you take out a mortgage loan for the house for $250,000. Because of the recession, your house is no longer worth $250,000.
Oh yeah, I've seen that a lot. Yeah.
Right. Your house, instead of appreciating in equity, appreciating in value, because the market has now crashed, your house is now worth less than the mortgage you hold for it.
Which is why you had these other predators that was coming around buying houses and flipping them.
Right. So after the crisis, the percentage of black homeowners with negative equity exploded from 0.7% to 14.2%. And unlike white families, that continued to increase through 2013. All right? Let's scroll on down. This is mean home equity by race. We just talked about home equity and how that was different. Mean home equity among all white homeowners, over $100,000 throughout the entire recession, throughout the whole period of time, right? For black and Latino homemakers, completely different story. So black and Latino homemakers had less equity to draw. They had no equity to draw on to even save their homes. They couldn't even draw on their equity to make a payment to save their home. Right? That's why that's important. More equity tables, more. So, now given the differences in wealth portfolios across race and class, responding to the recession by bailing out financial assets while allowing homeowners to drown resulted in further concentrating the national wealth into the hands of the richest white families.
Now stop right there.
Okay.
Because there's been reports that's already out that the biggest transference of wealth from the bottom to the top has been under Obama.
And this is why. This one issue is why. People think that when we say that it was like, Obama opened the doors to the Treasury Department and just let white people go. No. It was actually because programs that were supposed to help people, the most affected people, recover from the housing crisis, the foreclosure crisis, were literally not helped. So in figure 6, this is figure 6 right here, we see that between 2007 and 2016, the wealthiest 10% of white families saw their wealth increase. This is so obscene. Saw their wealth increase by an average of $1.2 million. The next wealthiest 10% of white families increased their net worth by an average of $141,000. And the top 10% of black families, those are the richest among us, grew their wealth by $78,000. See, even rich black people are not rich like rich white people. So everybody else except for the richest 10% also experienced wealth declines, some as high as 40%. The foreclosure crisis had a gruesome effect on the rest of the economy because people lose their jobs. Because people lost their jobs, they didn't have the incomes they needed anymore to pay their mortgages. They couldn't draw. Poorer people, black people who were already at the bottom end of the income equality scale and wealth equality scale, they had no equity in their homes to draw on to make that cushion, and they had no assets. That's the other part of wealth. Wealthy white people don't only hold their wealth in their homes, they also have assets that are worth tons of money that they can draw on in the event of a crisis.
Okay, now, so I kind of think we got it. So
you got that.
So the thing of it is that when we talk about, now we had 8 years of Obama. Now that there's some very sobering information that you've given us. So now we got 8 years of Obama. And so this is the case. What the fact that this program that he was supposed to have initiated, that was supposed to help those who got caught up in that. Why didn't it work? And this is what we want. Why didn't that work?
So let me scroll down and find the part. Oh, here's the wonderful. I think here's the beginning of the issue. Okay. Yeah, let me make sure. I just want to make sure I don't get a whole bunch of stuff in there that you don't need and that you don't care about. Because you're going to read this report yourself, because we're going to give you a link to it. All right. So now in this report, they talk about the bailout and why the bailout failed homeowners and the most vulnerable homeowners. They focus on AIG because AIG was was the largest, received the most amount of money, pretty much from the government. So AIG's failure in particular would have been a global disaster, and so it was nationalized.
That's a dirty word in capitalism.
Hold on. We can't nationalize any of our resources. We can't nationalize electricity. We can't nationalize water. We can't nationalize anything, any resource that we use in this country. But we could nationalize AIG to make sure that it didn't fail. All right? It was nationalized and rescued with multiple lines of credit, eventually totaling $182 billion. Now, again, these were the people who caused this. Remember when Hillary Clinton said that that the recession was partially the homeowners' responsibility because they didn't read the fine print?
Yeah, I mean, just her and a lot of people on the right.
Exactly. Well, the Obama administration didn't have a problem giving $182 billion in funds and credit to one of the financial institutions that was directly responsible for the recession.
All right, so basically what we're seeing here is that the people who were responsible for causing all this havoc got rewarded for the government.
Yes, they did.
Right. And the reason why I'm responding this way, because I understand that this is a lot of technical information, and I understand if you're anything like me, my head starts to hurt after a while. I mean, these numbers and graphs and all this stuff. So, so that's why I'm coming at it this way, Because I'm sitting here like, I'm angry,
Uh-huh.
and then my brain is absorbing this information.
Like too much.
And it's like,
too much.
so if you're anything like me, but yeah, you will get a chance to read this and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, this is the beef that we have, people.
Uh-huh.
The reason why that in spite of a man who got 98% on both occasions, his first and second term. That the only thing that black people receive, and see it now, I want to go past this.
Okay.
I want to go past this. I mean, you can go back with that, but I want to make some mentions before this because we ain't got much time.
Okay.
All right. Both the first term and the second term, Obama received more than 96% of the African American vote.
That's right.
Right now, we've seen in the first term how black people got screwed over, and how the first black president didn't even. Trump is ruling by executive orders right now.
Yep.
And the fact that this guy didn't even have the sense that I think that out of all of the recent presidents, he used executive orders the least.
The least, I think that's
right.
True.
Now for all of the support that he got from the black community, he didn't even see fit to through executive orders or even if he didn't know how things went. Trump came from being a real estate developer to president. So even if this guy is a community activist and didn't know how government worked, you got advisors, you got people, you can ask questions and say, look, how can I help the most vulnerable of the people that suffered from this type of stuff?
Right.
Apparently, that question wasn't asked. So nothing happened on that stage. Now he's running for office again. This is the second term. And what did the black community receive? The black community received not help from everything that we just mentioned with the housing crisis.
Right.
The black people didn't even have an advocate when the police was gunning us down in the streets.
That's right.
This guy gets up there with Trayvon Martin, and it was like pulling teeth to get there. And he finally said, because he's such a coward when it came to race, he gets up there and say, well, I had a son, my son would look just like Trayvon.
That was helpful.
And and all because this overinflated sense of himself, and that overinflated sense comes from this ridiculous notion of the civil rights Christian era. The civil rights Christian era that has people believe that through the power of your moral force, you can change this and change that. Let me tell you something. There were only a very few people who could do that. There were only a very few, and we got books, religious books written about them. There were very few people in history that had that impact on people. The rest of us either got it through war, we either got it through other relations or other ways that we got in order to gain what we needed to get.
Right.
But there were very few people that existed in history that was able, through their own force of moral, to change society morally. But somehow we get these people from the civil rights era that believe that all you got to do is sit up there and that moral change alone is going to change the hearts of these people. And we wasted 8 years of this this nonsense. While black people are getting poorer, the only thing you can do is come to me and say, well, you have to go high while they go low. Not to mention, not to mention that the only thing this man has done, where he was a coward on race, he was a coward when it came to addressing the issues of black people, even when black people were telling them. His response was, don't make excuses. Right. His response was, I'm not the president for just black people. His response was that, so the black community as a whole, and once again, we're talking about the masses. There were some black folks that benefited under him. They the ones that sing his praises the loudest. But the majority of black people, the masses, have once been let down. I have not seen, Jack, and I'm going to put it out there. I haven't seen the black masses benefit from none of these civil rights Negroes yet.
I mean,
none.
No. Listen,
Al Sharpton,
what?
The CB Congressional Black Caucus, all of these so-called civil rights era people that came out of the civil rights era and they get into positions of power and government and all this stuff, they have not in any way have put forth anything that greatly benefit the masses. So
right.
so this is the beef that we have with Obama. This is why, in my view, that his legacy, that we squandered, 8 years, and a lot of that responsibility is on our shoulders too, because we as a people have got to get out of being satisfied with symbolism.
Oh my gosh! Because for 8 years, that was for us, for black people, for the black masses. We're not talking about the 10% of wealthy black people. But even them. Anytime your top 10% has less than half of the wealth of the wealthiest 10% in your country, now that's a problem. When you do everything right, that's a problem. But look, I'm not gonna advocate for people who don't want to advocate for themselves. So I can't do anything for them. But when I look at this report and I see how President Obama did not really, he put the mechanisms for providing relief to those harmed the most, especially in terms of blatant racial discrimination by these financial. He put the mechanisms for relief for those people into the hands of the same people who discriminated against them. What kind of ignorant? I just said it.
Because Obama being the black, see, we gotta understand that black in America is not just skin color. Black is experience. Obama, they call him the first black president, but Obama didn't have our experience.
And he didn't care.
No, I mean, black in America is not just race.
No.
Black in America is an experience. It is an experience that Obama just never had. Right. And so here you're talking about a guy who benefited from social capital because he went to Harvard.
Right.
He went to Harvard based upon his grandfather's being alumni. Somebody in his family was alumni. They got him in there. Most black folks, we can't even get into community college. We can't have nobody even vouch for us to go into community college.
We can. When we do, we can't afford it.
And then we can't afford it. So, the only thing that related Obama to us was the fact that his skin was a little darker, but he didn't have our experiences. Most black people never traveled out of the country. This man went to Kenya. He grew up went to school in Indonesia, so he had a broader worldview.
Right.
And so it didn't surprise. And then he came up in Hawaii, so it didn't surprise me that when it came to issues of race, that he was stunted.
He had no clue.
He had no clue at all.
No clue. And when you bring up the civil rights era leaders and politicians, because a lot of those people are politicians, I'm angry at them because they didn't advocate for the masses. They really, it's like a lot of them thought, well, we did our job with the Civil Rights Act. Now we can, rest on our laurels. And let's just be honest, a lot of those people took the check and seriously didn't care about the fact that the legislation they fought for either stopped short of actually addressing issues in material ways, or they knew that the issues were still happening, but because they were comfortable now, it was like, well, whatever. Because seriously, there is no way that this legislation, that this portion of the Stimulus Act got past the entire Congressional Black Caucus and all these civil rights black leaders, and nobody I'm sure somebody did, but there was no hue and cry among our so-called black leadership about the fact that, this is from the report, the Obama administration responded to the crisis by allocating $75 billion to mortgage relief. Now, consider how much his administration gave AIG alone. ProPublica estimates the total amount of money that was given out under the Stimulus Act to save the banking industry to the banks was $600 billion. Other estimates are as high as $1 trillion. Relief for homeowners, $75 million. That was it. I'm sorry, $1 billion. That was it. In a memo to lawmakers, the White House, this is how we know it was him. It wasn't some underling. It was the White House, promised to reduce the number of preventable foreclosures by helping to reduce mortgage payments for economically stressed but responsible homeowners, while also reforming our bankruptcy laws and strengthening existing housing initiatives. Unfortunately, the program would neither be funded nor managed well enough to protect families, especially black families, as the financial crisis unfolded.
Now, see, once again, that just shows you that the only thing black people have gotten from government is lip service. And the only thing that this black president has given the black community is lip service. That's the only thing they got. And what's really so sad is that after crapping all on us for 8 years, not taking our issues seriously, basically, and then every time he did address us, he treated us like we weren't part of the citizenry by not even candidate Obama would go to black areas and talk about our perceived pathology, but he would never talk policy with us. That was for the good white folks in Idaho. That was for the good white folks in Utah, and and stuff like that, or up there in New Hampshire. But what we got was to say, you guys need to correct that pathology you got, having all those babies out of wedlock and pulling your pants up, and stop making excuses. That's what we got. And then and black people, being the good natured people they are, because I was in North New Jersey.
You were there when that happened.
Well, not when Obama did it. I was there when Cosby did it.
Oh, that's right.
I was in North New Jersey when Cosby came up on his beating up black people tour. And he was on his beating up black people tour, and we was in Seth Boyd in the Park projects, one of the most notorious projects in Newark, New Jersey. And he came there, riding high. We didn't know that he was alleged, sexual assault at that time. But he came up there, and he's Bill Cosby. And so we went there to see him. I went there to see him. I was living in Newark at the time, and the way this man spoke to us. The way he insulted us. The way he called black women fat and ugly, and talked about how you let your kids run around all dirty and this. And guess what? Black folks, and I was in the audience, they were angry. We were angry, but because it was Bill Cosby, we were respectful. And that is the only reason that Obama got by.
That's it.
Because when Obama came by on his beat up on black people tour, and he was using us to show white folks, just like a lot of black cops do when they beat up on us more, so they can show their white partner, like, I could be tough on them too. So Obama's thing was using us as political capital, because he felt like, if I'm going to get the white vote, then I got to show white folks that I'm just as hard on these niggas. Forgive me, but I'm just as hard on them as anything else. And what happened was, it's not that we didn't understand the game. It's the fact that we wanted to see this man succeed so much that we took it. We took it on us. And the way that he repaid us was he got in the office, and then after not doing a damn thing for us, then when Hillary's turn came up, then this joker got a nerve to come back and said, well, you black folks, if y'all don't want to, if you don't want Trump, you better vote for Hillary.
You better protect my legacy.
Well, look, man, and you angry at us. And this is where I was done with this cat. You angry with the black community by talking about we need to protect your legacy when you ain't do a damn thing for us. So now that you're talking about with Trump coming, and then try to scare us with Trump and say, well, I know a lot of y'all ain't feeling Hillary, but so you coming on black radio and all this other kind of stuff, trying to get us to vote for Hillary, and scare us with Trump, and that's when black folks, me and I'm one of them, that's when most of us said, you know what, let Trump be president, because how worse could it be?
And
what else can we lose?
Because we've already lost our what little bit of a black middle class we had. Already lost everything. Already lost on everything under him. This is the same man whose policy that was supposed to save the middle class, didn't do anything to address the racial discrimination that was caused by these financial institutions against Black and Latino mortgage borrowers.
That's right.
All of these banks supposedly paid these enormous fines, but the programs that came out of the stimulus were given, the programs that were supposed to save the homeowners were given to the servicers who bought the mortgages from the people who discriminated against the mortgage lenders in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And then the servicers had no incentive to modify those mortgage loans. Why? Why? What incentive would they have? They would have gotten paid twice, sometimes 3 times. They strung people along. Now these were people, again, who didn't have equity in their homes to pull out some of that equity and pay their mortgage if they lost their job or whatever. They weren't able to rely on other assets that they had to save their homes. So all they had to rely on was this HAMP program that came through the Obama administration. And the program was so inefficient and ineffective that, let me find that, that some of the servicers that received money from the government to modify the loans now didn't do it because a lot of them actually had more of an incentive to foreclose on the loan.
Well, they got their money. They got their money.
They got their money from the homeowner, and they would claim they lost paperwork, so they would drag out the payments for a few months so people would keep paying them, and then they would tell people, oh yeah, we're modifying your loan, and then of course they weren't going to do it, so they just foreclosed on people's houses after people continued to pay them under false modified terms. So then, not only did they get these extra payments outside of the modification period, but then they would turn around and sell the homes on a short sale and get paid again.
Wow.
This was after they got money from the government, got payments from the in trouble homeowners, then they got more money on the foreclosed property from short sales.
Man.
Who lost? Where's that chart? Where is this? Is the last? I know. It's the last chart I'm gonna show you because of our technical issues. Oh my God, we couldn't even show you everything. Let me see if I can find that. Oh, I'm just so upset. I lost the chart now.
Well, what we'll do is, if you can't find it, we'll post it up. People can look at it later.
Oh, here it is.
Right there?
Yeah. It's the same one we looked at before, but this is an image I really want to leave people with. This is the result of the president's so-called stimulus for homeowners. This was the result of the program that was supposed to help homeowners. Some homeowners did receive some relief from this program. We know people who did.
Right.
However, the 4 million homeowners who were supposed to have been helped by this program, out of the 4 million homeowners, less than half of the homeowners who applied for the program actually qualified because of the onerous paperwork. The paperwork to qualify for HAMP was worse than the paperwork that was required for a mortgage.
Wow.
So a lot of people couldn't even get to the qualification process. And then out of the 1.7 million people who were approved for the HAMP program, about 500,000 of them eventually stopped waiting to get help because the loan servicers who had the money, who were making the decisions, kept jerking them around.
Yeah, I mean, they got the money and they ain't trying to give up off of it.
Right. And so what was the result of Obama's stimulus for Black America in regard to the foreclosure crisis? This was the result. In 2010, the percent of homeowners with negative equity by race for Black people
hit the ceiling.
It began to increase.
Yeah.
And it hit higher by 2012 than any other group of people. And as you can see, remained higher than white people and Latinos until 2016.
So now you see why we really need a revolution. Now you see why that we don't have time or the games as black people to sit back and just be led astray by these, Democrats and Republicans. We really have to, and we said this on the show, and we promote this on the show, is that we have to have Pacific agenda, a black agenda that is going to make sure that if you want our vote, and I heard something down when we watched CNN this morning, the guy that's running against Moore.
Doug Jones.
Right, but you got black folks down there. They're starting to wake up and say, look, if you don't have anything that addresses our issue, then guess what? We're staying home.
Exactly.
And finally, a lot of us are starting to wake up and say, look, going to our churches and being stamped on the forehead by the pastor, they ain't gonna get you our votes. Running around here, trying to acquaint yourself with our pop culture references. That's not going to make it. Running around here, getting on black radio and trying to shame us and scare us about what the opposition is going to be, that's not getting it. We are starting to wake up to the point now is that if you want our vote, here's our list of demands.
That's right.
And if you don't support that, then guess what? We sitting home.
And
please, spare me the reference that folks died so that I could vote. But they also died so if I didn't want to vote.
Look, that's what I was gonna say. I was really good, and then so look, I have to apologize again for the technical issues, and I've had so many conversations with people over the past few months, black people who are still making excuses for Obama because Trump is so horrible. But for so many of us in this country who did exactly what we were told was the right thing to do, were the right things to do, buy a house, that's the ticket to the American dream, get an education, get a good job, save your money, be responsible. So many of us do that. And we are still on the bottom of every scale in this country, from economics to mortality, to infant mortality, and the mortality. There's a study that just came out that showed that more black women still die in childbirth in this country than for any other. So don't tell me I don't have a right to demand from my elected officials that they address black issues. Don't tell me that.
And you know why black people do that, what you just said, and I'll close with this. Why black people, in spite say that make excuses for Obama, it's the same thing of when you got a kid that's terrorizing the neighborhood, right? And that kid is terrorizing the neighborhood. And everybody come back and tell you that this kid terrorizing the neighborhood. Then he gets caught up in something, the news come, and the first thing they say is, but he was a good kid. What I'm saying is the fact that, and not that Obama's a criminal, in some ways he is, in my view. He's a criminal in a lot of ways, and we'll talk about that later. But black people, we understand that we didn't get nothing from Obama. We understand. We're not a dumb group of people.
Yeah, we do.
But see, we're afraid that if we were to admit that, then white folks will hold that against us and be like, see, we gave y'all shot. Even y'all know you can't govern. So, we didn't say nothing.
That was not on us.
Even y'all know. So it's sort of this thing of, he's talking about somebody protecting his legacy. That's what we're doing. And the thing of it is that even now, with the critics coming out, the masses of black people who gained the least, who didn't gain at all under Obama administration, they're the ones that first protect him, because it's sort of saying that we know that he didn't give us anything, but we're afraid that if as a group we come out and say that we didn't get nothing, that Obama failed us, then we're afraid, because there is a paranoia in the black community, it's justifiably so, that white folks would use that as a group failure. Because we're always judged collectively when it comes to failure. Never success though, but for failure we're always group. So that's my my take on why black people are surrounding Obama like that, because we know when Obama left office and Trump took over, many of us that's 50 and on up, we already said, well, I done seen it, I can die now, because they ain't letting another black person up in there.
That's never going to happen again.
That ain't going to happen again in my lifetime. So anyway, that's it.
Oh my gosh. So, hey, thank y'all so much for hanging in with us tonight through all our technical issues and stuff. And we will give you a link to this report. Just sobering and enraging. I want to keep talking, but we've been on here for an hour and some few minutes already because it's just so much.
But we'll revisit the subject matter again.
We're gonna have to because there's a whole just bunch of other ancillary issues. You know, all my little white progressive friends who don't want to talk about black issues because you think that if you get your issues that you're interested in passed, then that's gonna help black people. How? When we don't have nothing anyway. How?
They say rising tide lift all boats.
If you don't have a boat or oars or you're not anywhere near the beach, explain to me how that's going to happen.
But I was going to say this too. Rising shit lifts all boats too.
How about that? Okay, we will stop before we say something really awful. Hey, thanks y'all. Thanks y'all so much for sticking in with us tonight. We will be live again, hopefully without any technical issues, on Wednesday night at between 6 and 6:30 p.m. Another episode of Live in Luqman Nation. Thank you all very much for joining us. Share this video, like us, follow us, subscribe to us on YouTube, all that good stuff. Have a great evening. You all be very, very good to each other.
Yes.
Peace.
Peace out.
You're rising shit. It's all boats. God,